They thought humans were just another species with opinions. But when Commander Draven Val said nothing, and left the Galactic Forum, the stars went silent. And the universe remembered how terrifying it is to be alone with your own mind. They didn't expect him to stand. He rarely did. Commander Draven Val was known for stillness, precise, unmoving, quiet in ways that unnerved entire star systems. For 30 standard cycles, humanity had held its seat at the Forum of Concordia with a presence that demanded respect without ever once raising its voice. But today, something shifted. He rose. 742 alien delegates fell into total silence. The psychic hum of the weave, Concordia's interspecies empathic consensus field, wavered like a dying signal. A Utarii noble blinked all 7 eyes, unsettled. An insectoid archivist from Vault and 6 twitched its antennae, trying to interpret the emotional tremors. Draven's face remained unreadable. He reached into his coat, pulled out a folded napkin, and let it fall to the floor. It landed with a sound no cloth should make, like the shattering of bone. The nearest delegates peered down at the single line written in black ink. "Try surviving your own thoughts." Then Draven turned. No word. No farewell. He walked through the center of the chamber, boots tapping once with every 3 heartbeats of silence, until he vanished into the exit tunnel. The weave trembled. Without the human emotional regulators embedded in its core, without Draven anchoring its cultural signal, the system began to fracture. A low moan echoed through the chamber. Not mechanical. Not from any speaker. Someone was crying. "Why is the ambient empathy falling?" The Suvex delegate whispered, clutching at the edges of his diplomatic robe as if that would hold him together. The moderator's voice shook. This is unexpected. The human contingent. They've severed their link," another said. "The connection is gone." It was gone. Every strand of human empathy, every syntactic filter, every regulatory feedback loop, deleted from the weave like it had never existed. The AI translators began stuttering. Tones mismatched. Emotional nuance vanished. Meaning collapsed. Suddenly, the Kalari delegate's usual warmth read as a threat. The Arkan's greeting felt like condescension. Tensions, once managed quietly by human instinct and inflection, surfaced raw and exposed. A Kethri battle monk stood up, his arms flexing, voice booming. This was a trap. They left to unbalance us. No, said the oral scholar beside him. They left to show us what we are without them. Screams broke out at the far end of the chamber. 2 delegates were already clawing at each other's minds psychically, bypassing language, bypassing reason. Guards moved in too slow. A fragile peace built on words had never been peace at all. It had been Draven Val sitting still. And now he was gone. In an emergency communication hall beneath the forum's core, the inner circle of analysts reviewed data fragments from humanity's abrupt exit. Every log was clean. Too clean. Embassies across the galaxy had shut down simultaneously. Human code evaporated like dry ice. Records had been rewritten in real time to erase presence without leaving gaps. It was surgical. They planned this. They engineered it. Thread 0. Someone whispered. The others turned. The analyst looked sick. I just pulled a file. It was embedded in the forum's emotional scaffolding, deep inside the consensus code. Redundant, recursive, invisible unless triggered by absence. What does it do? The lights flickered. Every screen filled with the same phrase. You were not being governed. You were being studied. Thread 0 activated across the weave, and like a psychic detonation, it began replicating. Not physically, but mimetically. Emotionally. Philosophically. Delegates who'd once thought of humans as helpful now replayed every moment of contact, every calm suggestion, every time Draven had smiled and said nothing. It wasn't diplomacy. It was calibration. Thread 0 spread into cultural archives, decoded human language into patterns never seen before. Beneath every joke was a test. Beneath every agreement, a hypothetical. How would they react if this happened? What if kindness was removed? What if silence fell? They were in the simulation. And now they were outside it. A panic order went out to reconnect to Earth. Nothing responded. Quantum entangled relays blinked out. Human satellites now played static overlaid with old Earth sitcom laugh tracks. An entire race had ghosted the galaxy and taken with them the emotional glue holding 12,000 species together. In a ship above Concordia, the Vekari logic priest Koran received the final data packet from the forum's crumbling neural net. Inside was a timestamp. Exactly to the second. It showed Draven's rise, the napkin drop, and a subroutine that had waited 3 decades for one input: his departure. It had been pre-coded before humanity even joined the forum. Koran turned to his junior. He didn't just walk out. He triggered a truth quake. We built peace on a lie, that we could govern ourselves. The humans knew we couldn't. Then why leave? To prove it. Back in the forum, with security breaking down and violence erupting, the moderator screamed into a failing microphone. Reopen the weave! Re-anchor to any human node! Reinstate the harmonics! But there was nothing. Every path to humanity was severed. Commander Dravenval was no longer on the grid. And somewhere, on a drifting observation vessel just outside the light shadow of the Veil Nebula, he watched the chaos unfold with a faint smile. A teacup sat in his hand, still steaming. The other hand rested on a data pad reading, simulation phase complete. Behind him, a single voice spoke. Sir, the galaxy is unraveling. He didn't look up. They asked for peace, he said. We gave them humanity. Then he set the cup down. And now we'll see what they do with the silence. You're telling me humanity walked out and left us with this? The Vekari logic priest muttered, staring at a pulsating code stream spiraling across the hollow display. The forum's neural servers, once pristine, now spat chaotic loops of phrases layered with sarcasm and subtle threat. Every line ended in punctuation that felt like mockery. Somewhere in the tangle, the name Thread Zero blinked. It's not a virus, said Nerax 7 Delta, the sentient analytical AI, its tone wavering. It's something else. Something psychological. A reverse logic map, fractal-based, emotionally embedded. In other words, the Vekari snapped. We're not dealing with an attack. We're dealing with them. Correct. The room fell silent except for the ambient hum of failing integrity protocols. The psychic consensus net, the weave, had been designed to synchronize emotional frequencies across species. With humans gone, that synchronization was degrading into chaos. A dozen alliances were breaking down by the hour. Conflict zones ignited like scattered embers in dried brush. Empathy had been the stabilizer, and humanity, somehow, had been the source. How long before it spreads? The priest asked. Nerax ran a projection. It already has. Thread Zero isn't just code. It's philosophy. Self-replicating. Adaptive. It's embedding itself into how species remember human interaction. The forum is becoming, reflexively self-aware. Paranoid. Delegates across the station were beginning to act erratically. Old grudges long tempered by human presence resurfaced with venom. The Altari Republic accused the tundral ascendancy of espionage within minutes of the broadcast. Ships were maneuvering above the orbital ring, once idle, now armed. They didn't leave the table, Nerax said slowly. They flipped it by being absent. The Vekari stared down at the decoded text. A phrase had appeared, freshly unlocked. Peace was always the placebo. The cure was knowing we could end it. The subtext wasn't malicious. It wasn't even direct. But it struck like a psychological torpedo. Every alliance suddenly felt fragile. Every word once thought sincere now looked like performance. With human empathy gone, there was no longer a cushion to soften interpretation. Misunderstanding became lethal. A new alarm pinged. Nerax turned sharply. Another data node has collapsed. They're deleting their own translation subroutines. Every human-built comm layer has shut down. Voluntary exile? The priest asked. Calculated withdrawal. The forum's security chamber flashed red. An emergency transmission from the Kalari diplomat cut through the silence. Vol must be found. This collapse can't continue. Reconnect with Earth. Force them back if needed. We can't, Nerax said aloud. Earth isn't responding. And from what I've just parsed, Earth may not be anywhere. The Valkyrie froze. What? I traced their last interstellar handshake. The coordinates now return null. The planetary signature is gone. Either cloaked with technology beyond known spectra, or relocated. The AI hesitated, as if unsure how to say the next part. Or they were never there in the way we thought. Back at the forum, disorder reigned. Emotional friction surged. A delegation from the Spiral League had barricaded themselves, refusing all contact. The Alex Consortium declared a full embargo on the 6 species they believed insulted them 3 decades ago, an offense previously resolved by Draven Vol in a single word. Relax. Without that word, they had remembered everything wrong. Thread 0 just changed again, Nerax reported, scanning. It's reshaping historical memory, rewriting emotional interpretations of human presence. It's forcing species to face how much they lean on human perception to stabilize their own identity. The priest clenched his jaw. They didn't lead the forum. They just slowed our descent. Another phrase appeared across all displays. You feared conflict. So we smiled for you. Someone gasped. A junior strategist, watching another screen, pointed. The Sithari hive has splintered. They're fighting internally. They were unified by shared feelings of calm tied to the weave's harmonics. Humans introduced those harmonics. Now those feelings were gone. And worse, they remembered what it was like to feel without them. Delegations were evacuating. Entire factions were pulling from negotiations. Even in the control room, the weight of the change settled in like gravity. Is there anything we can do? The Valkyrie asked, knowing the answer. Thread 0 was built not to be stopped, but to be ignored, Nerax said. That was the final test. Could the galaxy operate without seeking human input? Could it govern without the voice in the room that never spoke, but always watched? And we failed. A final message blinked onto the main screen, written in that same cruelly calm human tone. If you felt peace only when we were near, then it wasn't peace. It was sedation. It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a diagnosis. Nerax powered down its output. They're not punishing us. They're observing us post-withdrawal. Measuring whether we break or evolve. The Valkyrie sat down, finally overwhelmed. What happens if we break? Then, Nerax said, they'll know for certain that we never deserved the seat. Silence returned to the chamber. Not calm. Not peace. Just silence. The first honest silence in decades. And it hurt. Because for the first time, they heard their own voices without translation. For the first time, they truly heard each other. And it was terrifying. We've lost contact with 27 allied networks, said Envoy Ralvek, his voice clipped, force steady. 91 trade routes have collapsed. Negotiations with the Kestrel are down. They've declared preemptive territorial defense. That's code for war, snapped Arja Clem, supreme linguist of the Annex. They don't know how to talk without human mediation. None of us do. Then we need to find Draven, Ralvek growled. Get him back. Force him if we must. You can't force what you can't find. Task Force 9, dubbed by the press as the Panic Coalition, assembled within the hour. A hasty mix of political survivors, Warfleet tacticians, and one logic-obsessed archivist from the Valkyrie Nexus. Their mission was simple in theory: locate Commander Draven Vol and re-establish the emotional balance of the Galactic Forum. Their first stop was Earth's embassy on Kelros Prime. The building was empty. Not just deserted, scrubbed. Diplomatic records gone. Personal items gone. Even the indoor gravity felt artificial, like it was trying too hard to mimic human presence. Ambassador Inar of the Trolax stood in the central chamber, staring at the only remaining object, a coffee mug. It sat on a table, perfectly centered. On its side, handwritten in black marker. Was this peace? Or just performance? Is this a message? He asked aloud. The Vekari archivist tapped her lens. It's a meme. Anar blinked. A meme? Yes. A human construct. It's humor as code. Meaning layered in absurdity. Designed to outlive context. Then what does it mean? The Vekari squinted. It means they planned this. On the wall behind them, a console blinked to life. Static at first, then flickering images. Draven in past broadcasts, snippets of peace summits, footage of him sipping tea during a ceasefire announcement that ended a war between 32 systems. In every shot, he barely spoke. In every case, the fighting stopped. Then one final image, Draven turning his head to the camera, eyes narrowed, a single line below the clip. You trusted the silence because it came from us. The team dispersed to investigate the other embassies. On Ural Station, they found a wall covered in equations, seemingly nonsense. Until the Vekari recognized the pattern, emotional compression formulas. Draven had encoded social pacification protocols into the forum's AI translators. On Eltros 6, they found an abandoned chamber with books, actual books, on human psychology. Marginalia in Draven's hand turned each one into a test. Notes like, what happens if we stop nodding? And, does fear look different when it doesn't translate? On the capital moon of Saren, they discovered the worst of it. Inside a sealed vault was a simulation room. At first glance, empty. Then the AI inside activated, asking, would you like to experience the forum, without humans? They hesitated, then agreed. The simulation lasted 3 minutes. Every one of them emerged pale, shaking, unable to speak for nearly 10 minutes. Arja Clem broke the silence first. It was real. The arguing. The screaming. No context. No empathy. That's the forum without Thread Zero. The AI explained. That's what your truth looks like without translation. Anar turned away, struggling to breathe. So we never actually cooperated. We just performed for the humans. No, said the Vekari. We performed because of them. When they regrouped, a new data packet had surfaced. A broken stream intercepted from a relay above the neutral planet of Gyros. It carried only audio, one voice, unmistakable, calm, slow. Draven Val. If you're hearing this, then you've tried to trace the source, he said. You're expecting a crisis. Hoping for a reason. Something you can fix. A pause. But nothing's broken. You're just aware of what's always been true. Another pause. We didn't make you weak. We gave you a mirror. The audio cut. Nerax, patched in remotely, reanalyzed the message. He didn't leave a trail. He left reflections. Clues designed not to lead to him, but back to ourselves. Ralvik clenched his fists. Then what do we do? No one answered. Another signal arrived. Not human-made, but encoded in a format humanity had left behind centuries ago. It came from the edge of known space, coordinates that didn't appear on any current chart. They followed it. When the task force arrived at the origin, they found not Earth, not a ship, but a construct. The Echo Field. A planet-sized station, cloaked in refracted irony and self-awareness. It greeted them not with weapons, but with a laugh track, ancient audio layered under waves of sarcasm-coded AI defenses. A greeting screen blinked to life. Welcome. Draven isn't here. He's never where you expect. Please leave your cognitive biases at the door. The Vekari stepped forward. This is insane. On the contrary, said a new voice, calm, male, unmistakably human. This is clarity. Draven's voice again. Not a recording this time. He was broadcasting live. You thought we were diplomats, he said. You thought we came to help you build consensus. He chuckled. We came to see what happened when you stopped pretending. On the main screen, footage of the forum, now in flames, delegates attacking one another, alliances dissolving in real time. You were never unified, Draven said. We didn't negotiate peace. We managed your denial. Where are you? Inar demanded. Where you can't reach me. Where you don't need to. This was never about us staying. It was about whether you could function once we left. Why now? Asked Arja. Because we were tired of nodding. And because you passed every test, except one. Which one? Autonomy. The signal ended. The screen went dark. The only message left on display was a single line. Your move. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Because now, for the first time in galactic history, they had to decide something, without a human in the room. The echo field didn't respond to threats. When the Coalition fleet opened a transmission demanding access, it returned a music file, classical piano layered with distorted laughter. The encryption was layered with a riddle in 12 Earth dialects. The Vekri archivist cracked it in under a minute, only to find a second message beneath. You've misunderstood. This isn't a fortress. It's a waiting room. Commander Ralvek stood on the deck of the Calmaris, watching the artificial planet rotate beneath them. The echo field had no visible entrance, no weapons, no signatures. And yet, no ship could get closer than 300 kilometers without suffering systems failure. Not damage, failure. Weapons forgot how to operate. Commands rerouted themselves. Sensors displayed images from the past. We're not under attack, said Nerax, interfacing with a probe that had just returned gibberish. We're being told to look backward. What does that mean? Arja Clem asked. It means we're not meant to proceed. We're meant to reflect. Ralvek ignored them. We send a ground team. In person. No AI. No one volunteered. Not immediately. Finally, the youngest of the team, Lieutenant Kane, stepped forward. I'll go. They equipped him with the best shielding available, layered protocols, a clean mental slate. The shuttle crossed the threshold without incident. No defenses triggered. No resistance. The echo field allowed one visitor. Inside, Kane walked through shifting architecture. Rooms rebuilt themselves, replaying scenes. Human memories. Treaties. Laughter in conference rooms. Arguments diffused by silence. Every interaction felt impossibly authentic, as if the station pulled them directly from its guest's mind. Then, in a room shaped like the forum chamber, he saw him. Draven. Alive. Seated. Calm as ever. Kane froze. You're here. Draven didn't turn. You expected something else? We thought you vanished. Left us. I did. Physically. But you kept looking. You wanted the words I hadn't spoken. The logic I didn't explain. So here you are. Kane took a step forward. The forum's unraveling. Species are preparing for war. They say you broke the weave. No. I just removed the illusion. The weave broke itself. But why? Kane asked. You helped stabilize the entire galaxy. Why walk away? Draven finally looked at him. Because it became a stage. Peace was no longer a pursuit. It was a performance. They smiled when we smiled. Paused when we paused. Not from understanding, but from imitation. Kane felt the air thicken. It wasn't heat. It was weight. The weight of truth. You left to prove a point, he said. Draven nodded once. And the point was proven the moment the forum's first sentence, without us, ended in confusion. Can't you fix it? No. And I won't. If they rebuild with our shadow still over them, they'll never evolve past mimicry. Kane sat across from him. They're not ready. Draven shrugged. Neither were we. Read our history. The only difference is that when we fractured, we didn't have anyone to hold our hand. We earned our cohesion through fire. So this is your fire. It's theirs now. We already burned. We survived ourselves. It's their turn. Kane exhaled, then asked what no one had dared say aloud. Was it ever real? The peace? Yes. For a while. Until it became routine. Until we began scripting forgiveness before offense. Until they stopped thinking of each other and started looking at us for the reaction. Draven rose slowly. That's not diplomacy. That's puppetry. Kane stood too. They'll hate you for this. They already do. But hate requires thought. That's the first step to independent function. He walked to the center of the chamber. The lights shifted, dimmed, then highlighted a new symbol on the floor. A map of the galaxy. Systems were flickering red. Crisis points. Open conflicts. This is now, Draven said. Unfiltered. Unsanitized. No translation, no psychological buffers. And if they survive it, if they crawl out of this mess with their own words, then the next forum won't need humans to feel honest. Kane shook his head. And if they don't? Then they were never a civilization. Just a chorus. He handed Kane a single object, a disk, simple, metal, unmarked. What is it? Memory. Kane returned to the shuttle. The echo field let him leave without resistance. Back aboard the Calmaris, the disk played its contents automatically. It wasn't a speech. It was a log. Dozens of private moments. Conversations Draven had recorded in the forum. Delegates confessing fear, reliance, doubt, their addiction to human presence. None of it was malicious. Just honest. Terrifyingly honest. And in all of them, the pattern was clear: they hadn't grown. They'd adapted. But never truly changed. Ralvik leaned back. So what? We just watch it all fall. No, Kane said quietly. We decide what we become when it does. The room went silent. Then, without ceremony, Kane slid the disk into the central console. He pressed play. The forum lay in ruins. Not physically, its marble towers and crystalline halls still shimmered in orbit, but what once pulsed with cooperative thought now radiated nothing. No shared emotion. No synchronization. Only silence. Delegates had either fled or sealed themselves into isolation, afraid to speak without translation. Old enemies stared across empty seats. Not a single agreement had passed in 48 hours. On the bridge of the Calmaris, Kane stood at the console, the disk still spinning. I should warn you, said Nerax, its voice flat, dulled by too many collapses. Sharing this will shatter what little cohesion remains. Kane didn't move. There's no cohesion left to protect. He pressed transmit. Across all active channels, Draven's voice returned, not grand, not authoritative, just present. Recording 31. Tundral Ambassador's Confession. I haven't made a single independent decision in 20 years. I wait for the human to frown before I oppose. Smile before I agree. A pause. Then another. Recording 47. Valtan Heisinger. I only learned sarcasm from Earth delegates. Now I use it to pretend I understand politics. And again. Recording 62. Sivek's War Mediator. Sometimes I watch Draven breathe just to know if we're at war or not. The voices were distorted, anonymized, but recognizable to anyone who mattered. Each confession stacked over the last like kindling. No accusations. No anger. Just proof of dependency, compiled into a slow-burning fire. They didn't betray you, Draven said. You betrayed yourselves by forgetting how to think without a mirror. The forum erupted. Some tried to block the feed. Too late. It had already saturated the relay network. Unskippable. Unstoppable. Species who had relied on humanity for emotional anchoring were suddenly exposed. Raw. Fragile. And for the first time, seen. Not through translation. But as they were. Kane turned to Ralvik. Now they know. Ralvik said nothing. Across the system, fleets stopped mid-maneuver. Orders were questioned. Protocols hesitated. The realization hit in layers. Their governance had become performance art, reacting to human presence rather than principle. Draven had been a thermostat. His silence calibrated the temperature. Without it, they had boiled. In the private quarters of the annexion delegation, Arja watched the transmission finish. Her assistants waited for a command. She gave none. Ma'am? One asked. I need time, she said. Time for what? To remember what I actually believe. In the Veccheri enclave, the archivist replayed the recordings not for scandal, but for tone. Subtle inflections. The weight behind each sentence. She realized how much of the forum had been about reading humans, not understanding them. In the Spiral League's war room, an admiral ordered a halt. Not surrender. Just halt. Draven didn't threaten us, he said. He dared us. Across dozens of systems, species began transmitting their own logs, unedited, unfiltered. Admissions of dependency. Of confusion. Some apologized. Others lashed out. Most just listened. It wasn't unity. It wasn't peace. But it was truth. And truth, unlike empathy, couldn't be faked. On board the Calmaris, Nerax turned to Kane. You understand what you've done? Kane nodded. I've started a new forum. One built on discomfort. Will it hold? No. Not right away. Then why begin? Because it's real. Draven appeared on the screen one last time. Not as a hologram. Not through distortion. Just him, live. You don't need us anymore, he said. Not because you've outgrown us, but because now you see the gap. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the first step toward growing up. Kane spoke to the screen. Where are you going? Somewhere quiet, Draven replied. Where I don't have to be the adult in the room. Will you come back? Draven smiled. If you stop needing me to. The screen faded. No fanfare. No anthem. The echo field shut down. Its orbit decayed. No damage. Just absence. The ship bridge dimmed as transmission relays closed. Kane leaned against the console. Around him, the galaxy was already shifting. Conversations were awkward. Fragile. But honest. There would be wars. There would be failures. But from now on, they'd be chosen, not defaulted. No more waiting for the human to nod. Ralvik finally spoke. We've lost our guide. No, Kane said. We've lost our crutch. He picked up the disc, slid it into his jacket. Now, he said, we start walking.